Welcome to your favorite YouTube channel, Cartoonist Kayfabe. My name is Ed Piscor.
I'm Jim Rugg.
Cartoonist Kayfabe-tober is upon us, and these are your drawing prompts. Do not run out of steam, and make sure that you tag us in all of your drawings so that we can share and retweet as many of these as we can possibly do. The channel is a daily comic book channel, and we have more than 1,500 videos in the filmography right now. We might have talked about some of your favorites. Give the channel a search, hit the magnifying glass on the front page, search for your favorite comics, check out those episodes. We are also brought to you by the Patreon, and the King Kayfabers on the Patreon get all the videos before anybody else. They're hanging out with us in a live stream chat room right now, and there are more than 25 videos that have yet to go live to the public that the King Kayfabers have access to. Without further ado, Jimmy, let's take a look at Self-Loathing Comics by Robert Crumb and Aline Kominsky Crumb. Jimmy, this is the first Crumb comic that I bought straight off the rack when it was brand new.
Fascinating.
The Crumb documentary was fresh out. I got a bootleg from the Woodlawn Flea Market of Crumb. I used to rent, would it be Carnosaur 2? Just for the trailer of Crumb. I really believe it was, maybe. Or no, Carnosaur 2, because that's Corman. That would have been the Fantastic Four movie trailer. I forget where, but I would rent a shitty movie just for the Crumb documentary trailer.
Great. That's fantastic. I love that you got this when it came out, because that's a different reading experience than buying this stuff later. I bought this later. I would have bought this, I don't know, 5 or 6 years probably later, maybe even later than that. And when this stuff is published, you lose it. You know, if you don't read it at that time, it does change, I think, the way the work is kind of read. So
I couldn't believe this cover. The amount of craft on that cover, you know, like forgetting and discounting all the color that you see on there, man. Just the manic line work just fucking blew my mind. I could not get over this guy. And it's been a while since we've looked at a fresh Crumb, so we do have to let the people know, man, that you will get kicked out of the Pacific Northwest if it's discovered that you have Robert Crumb comics in your long boxes. So send them to P.O. Box 3071, Munhall, PA 15120, and you can stay progressive with your friends and all that entails. Jimmy, let's crack this thing open. And what this comic is, it's a really fascinating document.
Says it right at the top. Expose details of Crumb's everyday life.
Yes. And Aline does the back half. Robert does the front half. There's a great centerfold where they kind of mesh and get kind of dirty laundry. But it's a Rashomon kind of story where I think it's the same day in the life, because a lot of the same stuff is exactly talked about, and you get to see it from Robert's point of view, and you get to see it from Aline's. And I'm going to tell you something, Jimmy, like reading it as a kid and then rereading it now, Aline is giving you the template for interacting with like romantic partners and just females in general. Like the stuff, her concerns and stuff that she puts on the page, if you pay enough attention as a young boy to that stuff, like you sort of know what you're in for in a lot of ways. The inside covers are jam covers, so it's kind of like the old dirty laundry stuff where Robert would draw himself, Aline would draw herself, and they're kind of going on with their day. Panel 1, why don't we dedicate this book to Joe Matz?
Yes, I was surprised to open the book and read that.
Totally, man. They really dug Peep Show 3. And Joe Matz, it's that lack of self-consciousness when it comes to letting people know about all of his habits and things, which is something that, you know, it's interesting, the sphere of influence, because I bet you if we were able to talk to Joe Matz, he must have had some influence from Crumb and Aline, because the first Aline comic I read was in a issue arcade before she was with Robert Crumb, and she's fingering herself and she's popping zits and she's taking a shit and like looking at it and talking about, like, you know, hitting it with like Q-tips and studying it like very, very open about you know, her deal.
It's one of the fascinating things of reading this. Whenever you think about, I certainly know Crumb better than Aline, but reading this is such a, I don't want to say tepid, but it's almost like Crumb happy.
Right.
And it's neat. I had some of this week because I had a kind of chaotic domestic week of just doing things around the house
Yeah.
and stuff coming up, and a lot of that is in these pages.
Right.
But I also get that impression that like Crumb's really kind of at peace to probably as peaceful as he can get through this, and I kind of felt that myself this week. And it was interesting to read and just think like, in a strange way, one of his braver comics. It's not as sensational. It's not as outrageous. It's not what he's known for. And I kind of liked it. You know, it's that gentler side of Crumb. But it's interesting to see him handling that auto-bio of like slice of life.
Cartoonist Kayfabe is brought to you by the books that we make. The Hip Hop Family Tree Omnibus is out sooner than later. It's going to be in your stores, but it's not going to be there for long. Scoop it up. X-Men Grand Design Trilogy trade paperback coming to you in November. There are 2 trade paperbacks of Red Room out there right now. Trigger Warnings and the Antisocial Network with Crypto Killers trade paperback coming to you in January. Jimmy has a few copies of Hulk Grand Design at stores right now, but it is sold out at the publisher level, so if you see it, scoop it up. Jimmy's going to be having a big sale October 26th with a bunch of self-published stuff, including True Crime Funnies, the 1986 zine that has been available nowhere, so this will be the first time you get your hands on it, and the BW zine, and of course, Final Order Cutoff is coming soon for Street Angel Princess of Poverty trade paperback, which is going to collect all of Jimmy's Street Angel comics that are not in Street Angel Deadliest Girl Alive, which you also should have on your racks right now, or get it. Now that we're done paying the bills, back to the video. Yeah, we have a real fascinating dream sequence up front, and he uses different panel motifs. He uses a 6-panel grid with like a Mad Comics style splash panel. And then when we get to the domesticity, he's getting us that 12-panel grid, and he's done stories like this using the same 12-panel grid in the pages of Weirdo, and he's kind of done a comic in Weirdo that's very much like this, except that story, I think it might be a touch longer, and it's so much domestic stuff, and the whole joke with that other strip is like, I have to do all this stuff in a day, I do all of this shit, and then it's like, the last panel is like I sit down at the drawing board and get started. And that's kind of what we have here. In that old Weirdo strip, the old Weirdo strip is one of my favorites of his. He uses all rapidograph at this level. And he's also using, this is comic book dimensions, so it's not exactly squares. It's kind of weird rectangle, like a slight rectangle. But he's using his dip pen motif here. This pubescent Sophie Crumb is a fantastic character in this comic because of her shortness in terms of her dealings with the folks, and it just feels full of hormonal rage, man. I bet the accuracy of the living situation is accurate. I bet the bedrooms, and I bet everything is. If you went to the house,
yes,
you would see these things. Man, it feels too legit.
It's very cool seeing that part too, because about him. It's one of the famous stories in comics trading is some sketchbooks for this chateau in France, and it's neat to see. Like, give us the tour.
Right. See, it's pieces like this when Sophie finally gets up and just walks right by her parents and stuff. You could just tell that is we've been there.
Absolutely.
And then Robert kind of getting some French incorrectly, and then the girl shouting at him to like get it right, like, you are so fucking stupid, that type of shit. The parents can do nothing right. Magnificent drawer.
Absolutely, and it's fun to see him drawing these kinds of like little subtle cartooning stuff. Sophia twisting one way, then the other way.
Yeah.
Just keeping, it's cartooning 101 in a lot of ways. It's just Crumb's so good at it.
And he's able to keep that soft face, but still have lighting value and things on that face by just having like hatch marks down the middle. Like, that is ballsy.
That's what we should all take notes on, because the way you usually age some character is put more lines on their face, especially like a girl character. Doesn't age her at all. And
then there's just the subtle stuff in the conversation. It's character stuff that, like, if you read this as a comic and not autobio, you're learning a lot about these characters. Like when the wife is talking about prune juice and I have to go make now, and then comes back and talks about the size of her turds, and how Robert's like, 21 constipation-free days. Like, that is a deep couple. Like, they are very, very comfortable with one another. Sophie off to school. I'm going now, bye, don't get me.
It's great to see Crumb put a lot of drawing into a 12-panel page like this, because this would be very easy to do talking heads.
Right.
But you actually get to see, like, in the house, different rooms, but then also let's go out for our run and see some little bits of the French countryside and the French village that they live in.
Backgrounds on every page. He is getting full value. He's got a range of grays he's able to get in there. And with the amount of lines on the page, he amazingly keeps it insanely clear. Once again, I picked this comic up in 94, 95, whenever it was fresh out. So I'm 12, 13 years old when I scooped this thing up. And that's something that the guys at Phantom of the Attic would always be like, just let everybody know that your parents knew the deal. Because I would be in articles and stuff and talk about how I would scoop up Crumb comics very young.
That's hilarious.
And they're like, listen, we had to talk with your folks. And they were fine with it. But he's able to maintain clarity. So as a kid, when I was scooping these comics up, it's the first comic where I really, really, really made note of not having the background lines touch the characters, and I saw the point of that with this comic, because if these background marks would have started to encroach upon the line art of our main focal points, you're in trouble now.
That's a great call. He also would do stuff where the characters will or the drawings will get darker. I'm looking at like Eileen's dress on the edges or Crumb's pants on the edges. So then you have the contrast. If you have a white outline around them, more or less, it really does make a difference in terms of how much those characters pop versus that background. Essential in a complicated piece of line art like this. Ed, speculation here, but how much do you think he is penciling?
I think it's probably like the most basic kind of wireframes and the gestures, and that's all.
What about the lettering? Do you think he's Ames guiding lettering?
I don't think he ever did. And
it's so straight.
And there are those guys that could just do. I think you could do that. Like I've seen you letter stuff and it looks really straight.
I do letter without any lines sometimes, once in a while.
And it looks fine. It looks fine. So you guys are in the same school.
I wish.
Not a Crumb comic if he isn't having some sexual fantasies about the ladies at the post office, but he's also like having that recall of past partners. And that's another one of those illuminating things about, like, clearly these are like those like hippie California couple, because you couldn't do this. You couldn't be in this school.
No, I could not be part of that school for sure. But I think it makes a difference too when you get together. I don't know about Eileen's background, but I think like Crumb was married before this, so like
she was with Spain.
Yeah, so whenever you get together as an adult with another adult and you both have history, like I think some of this has to be accepted. Otherwise, you've got a formula for problems.
They're an open couple as well. Like it's said in that documentary. The interviewer might be swag off to Aline is like, he's with other women. What do you think about that? And she says, well, I'm with other men. The strip that's in the Billie Ireland that is like a dual piece that she does with Robert. She goes off and like fucks a dude. And Robert knows it and stuff. And he goes off and fucks some chick. So they just have a different kind of.
How effective is this whenever he breaks up the 12-panel grid?
Totally, and of course it's a fight, superhero fight scenes or sex scenes, like it's the no pun intended climactic sequence in this train of thought.
The other thing, what I was going to say about this is he's always doing something, or the characters are always doing something, and weirdly, like I learned that from the Marvel submission guide. Mm-hmm. Have these characters doing something, and it's. Again, a lot of comics that I look at, especially new comics, it's talking heads, and it makes me so angry. And this could be considered talking heads, except every single panel, the characters are doing something.
Totally. One of the things, there's all this, you see him doing all this domestic stuff in the house. One of the things that he mentions is something that Jeff Darrow has mentioned a bunch. He lives in France also. You need a plumber or you need some sort of work done at the house. You need the cable installed. Good luck having these guys show up at any point in time. I think it might be. Man, I read a lot of comics this past week. It might be in this one. Maybe you could corroborate. But there was some mention of like I can't detect any sort of work ethic in this town. Was that in this comic? I might have read something else.
Man, it sounds like it's this comic, but I can't remember clearly either. Yeah,
it might be Aline, the Aline comic. Okay, so that's pretty much the Crumb part.
One last note for just from a personal enjoyment, watching him do chores, I really enjoy for some reason because it's such a down to earth kind of like Crumb drilling a hole in the wall.
Right.
You know, like unexpected, I suppose.
Right.
It's kind of great. It's self-effacing in a way. You know, it's this mythic, legendary creator, and it's like so mundane.
Flip the script, man, to the great 2-page spread. Seeing them do their little dual stuff. You know what's fun is there are pieces where you can see, if you got the discerning eye, you know who's doing what at all times, and you know what Crumb's line looks like, and then you know what her line looks like, and sometimes it'll be both. Like it'll be Crumb doing everything. Like this panel, that's 100% Robert Crumb drawing that, and I'd like to know the conversation because I imagine that he draws that pose, and she goes, why do I even bother drawing a hand? Like, you just draw that whole piece. And then there will be lettering like... He lettered this, I would bet.
It does look like his lettering.
Yeah, and he lettered that, but then she letters this. And...
That makes sense. I could see this as a standalone illustration.
Right. And she's, classically self-effacing... the golden goose, the goose with the golden eggs, leaving America, going off to France. So this is all kind of happening right around that time.
Which makes sense why that would be the subject of a full comic from both of them, as this is new and it's all novelty still. You know, the daily routines, the mundane is novelty because you're now doing this in a foreign country.
Right.
Boy, the collaborative stuff is pretty interesting. You know, they've done quite a bit, and it's just real neat to see two cartoonists interacting on a page.
Absolutely, man. Long tradition for Robert Crumb in doing these kinds of things, going all the way back to his brother Charles with what he called the two-man comics. So, he has some experience with that, and I wonder if he was the instigator by having that experience. I think it's a great bonding thing. Certainly, if you have another cartoonist, lover. It could be it's very intimate. It's very intimate, and hanging out with people and drawing and stuff, like you and I have been in the game a long time. People actually get nervous about that. It's a vulnerability that they have to give up.
It's
like,
strange.
I can't draw around you.
But it is awesome once you get past that vulnerability part and you're actually in there,
right.
doing it. It becomes like a kind of great experience, and I can see how cartoonists get into that and want to keep that going.
Playing the hits, Aline is doing, man. She's putting her clear seal on, showing herself naked, showing the cellulite and varicose veins and stuff. But she goes extra. I think that it's a lesson that was learned from Harvey Pekar, that you gotta allow for a kind of a warts and all approach to get on the reader's good side. You have to kind of go a little extra and put yourself in kind of a darker light.
And it's cartooning, it's exaggeration. Whatever it is the subject is, in this case, the autobiography, you push it a little bit. It's Wrestling 101 too.
This is, you know what, like these comics inspired the next generation that would be a little bit older than like your stuff. And I remember hearing, I think it might have been Rick Altergott. It was some like, 80s, 90s cartoonists who were talking about like the navel gaze comics and saying that they were... the cartoonists were selling themselves as the hero with angels with a little bit of dirt on their faces.
Yes. Yeah, that's the risk.
Yeah.
Very hard to do this stuff well. And it's so alluring. Like, you read it and it almost feels effortless. Hard to do it well. A lot of bad autobio comics out there.
Totally. I wonder about her production process because she is a trained artist. Went all through school, painter. I wonder if she goes from one panel to the next, knows that we're going to have 6-panel grids, and just kind of feels it free association. Having some germ of an idea, because, it stops abruptly at the end of it. So I don't know that she, had much of a plan. I don't know that Crumb had much of a plan. It's like we have 12 pages, let's fill up some panels. They'll say stuff in their interactions back and forth, like, hey, go get a panel or two done.
Yeah, I like, man, that dog cartoon is really fun cartooning.
Yeah.
I like her art. It reminds me of Hernandez brothers in the sense of having two very close cartoonists and yet very independent stylistically.
Yeah. She, I wonder how much someone like Rory Hayes kind of influenced her, because the marks that she puts down on the paper, they have that meticulous quality that you find in the best of Rory Hayes, using stipple.
Yes. Stipple hatching, a very fine line too. So when you see these grays and textures, no shortcuts there. It's a lot of time.
I imagine, you mentioned the Crumb penciling stuff. I could bet that maybe she doesn't pencil with anything on this.
Pretty straight on her lettering though as well. The line sizes vary.
Yeah.
But that could be a T-square too. And I also, another technique for people is you can put a couple of lines just to be almost guides, but not rule out every line, but it allows you to stay within a certain, not to get too far out.
Yeah, it's kind of like when you do the perspective grid, rather than like taping your paper down and always using a ruler to the exact vanishing point every time. You kind of stay within a set of lines and you'll be reasonably okay. It's fun seeing both of their interpretations of the other person within the couple.
I enjoy that a lot. Yeah, I'm glad you pointed that out.
And she painted the piece that's on the back of Complete Crumb Comics, the portrait. That's her artwork, and you kind of see a little of the shape of the face. But whenever she does him, he'll look a little different in most of the comics, but they also do evolve themselves.
Yeah, I think that's so interesting, the way cartoonists see each other, the way they see themselves. It's so fascinating. You talk about exaggerating certain parts, and you can really see it, especially like Crumb, I feel like much more grotesque whenever he's drawing himself versus her version of him.
A lot of lines on the page. Like this lady is going hard. She always had that very kind of detailed style, so I don't want to put any baggage onto it, but I wonder if she felt the pressure of having to, be alongside of Robert Crumb. I've in the recent past, I've been going down a Francis Ford Coppola Godfather rabbit hole, and there's a lot of stuff with Talia Shire, how she's the sister of the director, so that there's that nepo baby elements, and how she felt the pressure to just give the performance of a lifetime, to prove to everybody else around that she deserves to be there, in the same way that Jimmy Caan or Marlon Brando or Al Pacino deserves to be there. I do wonder what might have gone through her head while she was doing this. I don't know that it's on the record. It might be in some of the comics, but worth exploring.
I think you see a lot of more attention to composition in a way. This isn't the best spread to do this example, but this will show a little bit, is you see sort of like gray, black background, open, gray, black. And if you go through this whole story, you get quite a bit of that.
Right.
The other takeaway from me looking at this is, must have been an influence on Julie Doucet,
who
was an artist, like when I started looking at alternative comics, just loved her work, and I saw a lot of parallels going through this. So I'm assuming this would have been an influence on Julie's work.
Totally, man. There it is, man. There were 2 issues of Self-Loathing comics. The way the Crumbs work, Dennis Kitchen touched on it a little bit in our shoot interview with him, where Crumb likes to kind of diversify his portfolio in terms of who gets what comics. He's not going to stick with Dennis Kitchen for everything. He's not going to stick with Gary Arlington for everything. So he had a good deal with Fantagraphics, did the Complete Crumb comics, they did the sketchbooks, they did ID, I guess, for Eros. And you get 2 issues of Self-Loathing comics. It's also interesting that it's not like he has one title, right? Like, he'll just make these other kinds of comics, like the stuff that comes after this. So this is the first thing that I grab off the rack, and then, of course, anything he puts out I'm grabbing. And there's not that much that comes out after that. There's a couple issues of Zap. Mystic Comics, I think, is the next kind of multi-series one, and that's the last Gasper, I believe. Or maybe Print Mint or something like that.
Yeah, I'm always curious about that too, because I've heard some people explain it as it's smart business because publishers will go out of business. But I have no idea. I think with Crumb, as Dennis Kitchen alluded to, it's almost like you're giving back.
Right.
So
giving a little something to all those guys. Yeah. Yeah, it's very cool. And none of them are going to bite the golden goose, man. They're going to treat him very well.
Yeah, right.
Fascinating comic, super fun. I hope this video does well, because I would like to go through issue number 2. The issue number 2 has Charles Burns and Art Spiegelman cameo appearances, and I think they draw themselves because they're coming to France. And I think Pete Poplawski, who I think colored this piece, I think he draws himself as Zorro. It's been a while since I read that one.
Well, yeah, you have your marching orders then, everybody. Do well on this video, and we'll dig into more of these.
Good to go?
I am.
Let's go. Kayfabers, like, follow, subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit the bell so that we can notify you when new videos are available. Kayfabe-tober is still upon us, and these are your drawing prompts. Do not run out of steam. Make sure that whenever you post these images, you got to tag us, you got to @ us, you got to let us know that these drawings exist so that we can share, retweet them as much as possible, signal boost your accounts, man, get you some more followers, and we get to enjoy your creative work. We're a daily YouTube channel, and with more than 1,500 videos in our coffers, you might not have seen everything. Go hit the little magnifying glass on the front page of the Cartoonist Kayfabe YouTube channel, and I've noticed you guys have been doing that because we've been getting some comments on some pretty obscure videos, so thank you so much for digging into the channel. Search for your favorite titles, check out those comics, and if we have not yet talked about your favorite comics yet, you must let us know. Put something in the comments so that we can push those comics a little bit higher on our to-read stacks.
And whenever you find the favorite cartoonist or favorite comic book, share those videos. It's how we grow this channel. We're not buying advertising elsewhere. We rely on you guys to spread the good word.
Yeah, good call, Jimmy. We have a Patreon that you can directly support the Cartoonist Kayfabe channel. The King Kayfabers on the Patreon are hanging out with us right now. They hang out with us every morning when we record our stuff. They get a leg up on the Kayfabe effect that way through this private stream. They have access to every video before anybody else. And we always record one extra video so that when Jimmy and I decide to go on some travels, we can still keep the daily content coming. So as of this recording right now, there might be about 25 videos that Gen Pop has not seen. So you could take advantage of that before we put those videos out live. Ultimately, the videos are brought to you by the books that we make, and before you is a small sample of our bibliography. But Jimmy, let the people know what is coming out soon.
My next book release is Street Angel, Princess of Poverty. This will be out in November from Image Comics. You can pre-order it now at your local comic shop or online, and we ask that you do that. This is an Image book, and they need to know how many of these to print, so let them know that you want a copy. I am also self-publishing zines and comic books lately. You see the BW zine here in 1986 and True Crime Funnies featuring nonfiction stories. These are all available on my website, jimrugg.com or patreon.com/jimrugg. And October 26th, I'm going to have a big holiday fall sale where you can stock up on this stuff and some of my other zines and minis that you may have missed. Hulk Grand Design is my contribution to the Grand Design mythos, and basically out of print. So if your comic shop has a copy and you don't, you may want to pick that up sooner rather than later because Marvel Comics does not keep this stuff in print. If you haven't picked up a Hulk Grand Design yet, they are getting more and more scarce. So grab those now while you can.
October 17th, the Hip Hop Family Tree Omnibus hits bookstores. October 18th, it hits comic shops. Scoop this up. About 75% of the print run has been accounted for. So we're playing with slim margins of which books are available right at this moment. So scoop it up sooner than later. It's the best book I've made. It's the 10-year anniversary of Hip Hop Family Tree. It's the 50th anniversary of hip hop as a culture. And it's gift-giving time. It's time to start planning those Christmas presents. And for the rap music lover in your life, especially if they don't know that this comic exists, this is going to blow their freaking minds. Not the only holiday effort to come out in 2023. In November comes the X-Men Grand Design trade paperback. This is going to collect the trilogy of X-Men Grand Design comics that I put together. So when you're out there getting your orders for Street Angel, Princess of Poverty, go tell the shop that you want your X-Men Grand Design trilogy trade paperback as well. There are a couple out-of-print volumes of that, so this will be your way to get them all inside of one handy paperback book. The focus the past couple of years has been Red Room, and there are 3 trade paperbacks of Red Room that will be out in total. 2 are on the stands as we speak, Antisocial Network and Trigger Warnings. Crypto Killers is coming out in January, and I do have to let you know that I've been working on daily strips for the past year. It's called Switchblade Shorties, and at my Patreon, you're going to be able to check those strips out before I start to release them on a daily basis beginning January 1st, 2024. Thank you all who are supporting the Patreon at that level and reading these strips well ahead of time. One of the gratifying things, Jimmy, is that people are developing their favorite characters, which speaks to the ability to get different personality into those characters.
To get those characters over.
Yes, for sure. So, the books are the most important part to keeping the Cartoonist Kayfabe channel solvent and functioning. But there are other ways to directly support Cartoonist Kayfabe, and Jimmy, you could let the people know what those are.
Subscribe to the Cartoonist Kayfabe e-newsletter at the links below this video. You can also find Cartoonist Kayfabe t-shirts, merchandise, hats, mugs, stickers, and more at our spread shop. That link is also under this video in the show notes.
There you have it. The many ways to support the Cartoonist Kayfabe channel. We thank you for your patronage. Jimmy, please give the people their final marching orders and we'll be on our way.
Read more comics.